Ha, take that, copyright law. That song version belongs to us.
Welcome, guys, to Hair of the Werewolf.
Christmas edition.
I'm Lily, and I have here with me Chase.
What's up, guys?
We have a very special Christmas episode for you this time, episode 8. And we are a paranormal podcast. So if you're thinking just because it's Christmas, it's not going to be scary, you're wrong.
And if you're also thinking just because it's Christmas, we're not going to be drinking, you're also wrong.
It doesn't matter what day it is.
Yeah. But today we are at least making it festive drinks. We have hot spice cider.
Hot spice cider, cheers. With a little bit of rum.
Yeah, a little bit's the right term.
I mean, it's as our friend Elisa introduced us to this drink.
Yeah. But it's not unlike the ciders that we were drinking when, in England last Christmas. Because all the pubs and even that teepee, and I mean, it was actually...
The mulled cider, you mean?
Yeah, it was mulled cider and mulled wine, which was just hot alcoholic spiced stuff. The wine tasted great. It smelled funky, though.
Yeah, it smelled weird.
Yeah.
I wasn't into it. I mean, I like drinking it, but... like with my nose pinched.
But I mean, the weirdest thing when we were there, so we spent Christmas in York, and they have this giant Christmas market out where people are buying gifts, and it's really wonderful. It's very festive. But then they have this giant teepee. I mean, it's actually a teepee, and it's called Thor's teepee, and it's huge. I mean, it's like bigger than a house, and you go inside it, and they have a fireplace inside, and people are all sitting at tables in there, and they're drinking beer and cider and wine and everything and just having a really good time. And it kind of caught us off guard because we're like, Thor is like Norse mythology and teepees, like, at least I associate it more with Native American tribes and stuff. And then they built it just for the season. I mean, like, I think it comes back every year, but I think it's a temporary building.
Yeah.
It was trippy, but it was really fun to go to.
It was really funny. I really enjoyed it, and I guess because, unfortunately, everyone is probably going to have to stay home, less travel, less seeing family, just try to think back of last year's Christmas and then be happy and enjoy these scary stories.
And next Christmas will be twice as awesome because we'll be hitting it twice as hard.
Yes, I hope so.
Same thing goes with St. Patty's Day, which is coming up soon, and let's hope by the middle of March.
I mean, Christmas was sad, but St. Patty's Day, that would be a tragedy.
Well, that one destroyed me because everything locked down like the day before St. Patty's Day.
Well, yeah, they canceled it right before.
That's like one of my favorite holidays of the year. So we've been missing a lot of really good holidays and birthdays. Shout out to everyone whose birthday has happened in this 9-month period so far,
and will continue.
Yeah, let's hope we can actually celebrate it well soon.
Yay. Well, with that said, let me scare you.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. See, if it's Christmas episode, it's got to be Christmas themed.
Exactly. And it is. Perfect. Because my story is about Krampus. Krampus.
Demon anti-Santa.
Yes. It is. So, he goes by many names, not because he is the devil, but mostly because he's had many interpretations and revisions throughout history, and no one really knows where he came from. So here's my modern interpretation, like when I gathered.
So you're making your own new Lily interpretation on top of all the others.
This is the Hair of the Werewolf interpretation of Krampus. Well, what I say is just based on like what the most popular people's perception and what seems to be accepted as far as like the figure.
But it's like vampires then. Different movies can't agree on whether or not crosses bother them or garlic bothers them or whether or not their skin is pale or sparkly.
Something like that. Yeah. So the one that I liked is...
Choice.
He is often portrayed as a demon, or part ghost, and sometimes part human. He is covered in black or brown fur, has blood red eyes, long black hair, long horns, large fangs, sharp claws, and an exaggeratingly long tongue.
Sounds like our logo.
Oh my God, it is. Our logo is just Krampus.
So for today, we are Hair of the Krampus.
We're here. Yep. Wow, I should have come up with a better description. It's just that's like
A werewolf?
that's like a bear.
It's like a werewolf with horns.
Yeah. He also carries a brown sack or a wicker basket so that he can fill it with naughty children.
Nice.
Another common description is that one of his legs is a hoof and the other is a human leg. But everything else is the same. So.
Oh my god, So he's a human leg.
So he has maybe a human leg or two hooves. I mean, it really depends on what you like.
I'm imagining if he has one of each, it looks like he's kind of hobbling, like he needs like a crutch or something.
Yeah, he kind of looks a little weird. It doesn't look comfortable. It kind of looks like when you lose a shoe and you're looking for it. It just looks like that. You're like, it doesn't really feel good.
Please help the Krampus. He looks like he needs help.
Yep. So the name Krampus is believed to come from the term krampen, which means claw. He has some other great nicknames, though. Some call him the Christmas Devil, the Demon of Christmas, the Anti-Saint Nicholas, and all that good stuff. But with that said, he is Saint Nick's companion, his other half. So he's basically like his evil to Saint Nicholas's good.
He's like Loki to Thor.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. So they just complete each other. So on the night before Christmas, he visits all the children to judge them to see if they have been naughty. Unlike Santa, he doesn't leave misbehaving children lump of coal. He instead does one of the following. He either whips them with birch sticks.
Like Belschnickel.
A little bit like Belschnickel, yep. He steals the children by stuffing them in his brown sack and drags them to the underworld and then eats them alive.
I like how you say steal and not kidnap. I mean, is it because he's a demon it's not kidnapping or what? Because, I mean, I would say kidnapping, not
I guess he does kidnap because it is a kid and it is now in his knapsack.
Yeah, because if he went to prison, it's a very different charge to steal something as it is to kidnap something.
I just think he took something that wasn't his.
All right, gotcha.
That's what I saw.
So he eats them then?
He does eat them. He eats them alive.
So he must be mad if he keeps running into a lot of good children because he's like, damn, I'm hungry.
Yeah, he was like, I'll just have one for a snack. Just to give.
He wasn't good enough.
Yep. Sometimes he'll drown them in either water or ink.
Or ink.
I know, that one was a weird one. I saw that in an article and I felt like if I didn't add it,
There's probably some like antiquated method in which people, when they used to write with like quills and whatnot, that they had large ink wells that were big enough to drown a child in.
Something like that. And then, some of the illustrations that I saw did look like a child. This is going to be graphic. Like Krampus holding him with a pitchfork, picking him out of some sort of black ink that he was covered in, and the child was obviously lifeless. Anyway, that's Krampus. So yeah, bear with me.
The ink gives them more flavor.
Oh, maybe.
Hey, people in Japan actually do consume squid ink. It's used in stuff. They dye noodles.
Oh,
There's
that's
these
right.
black noodles that they use squid ink in. So who knows? Maybe Krampus likes the way it tastes.
I guess so. It's just a delicacy. Nice. Let's see. Oh, and you know what? Sometimes if he decides you've been very bad, then he'll kind of combine punishments. So he'll either hit you with sticks and then drown you, maybe steal you, drown you, and then eat you later. I mean, it's just really up in the air.
You gotta be a really crappy kid to get all three.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Whipping, a drowning, and then an eating.
Oh, yeah, well, I think that might be, I don't know, drowning, getting eaten alive. I really hadn't had to think about it a lot before, but...
Maybe the whipping tenderizes the meat.
Ooh, maybe. But they're birch sticks. They're not that...
Just do it enough.
He's going to get really tired. Do you really want Krampus to cramp up?
Now, would those birch sticks be considered a broom? Could we possibly use those to keep back the...
Boo-hag?
The boo-hag?
Two birds with one stone? I don't think so. They're not that many. They just seem like a little
I'd like
pile.
to think Krampus and boo-hag would probably be like BFFs anyway.
I think they probably were.
They'd hang out.
Yeah. They probably dated.
As long as he puts his broom away, she's like, I'll hang out, but you better not have any brooms or so help me. Please
get rid of your birch stick collection because I need to come in the door. So here are some of his origin theories, because like I had mentioned before, nobody really knows exactly like a solidified source of where he may have come from.
Sure.
But here's one that I liked. So one is a pagan origins from the Alpine region in, like Austria, Germany, Switzerland area. And there was this winter deity, or witch rather, called Frau Perkta, and she would appear during the winter solstice. And she was believed to have the qualities of both Santa Claus and Krampus. So she was kind of OG, I think.
So, but you mean like she gave gifts, but also she punished children too?
Yeah, so I'll explain what she did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So she would visit children around mid-December, that a lot of people would eventually associate to the 12 days of Christmas. However, I read a little bit more into it because I heard it the opposite way before, where the 12 days of Christmas was the 12 days before Christmas, and then Christmas was the last day. And then there's the 12 days of Christmas that Christmas is the first day of the 12 days, and then it lands on the 5th.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends on like which church you follow and like what century. Anyway.
We've had one Christmas. What about second Christmas?
Let's have second Christmas. So she would come visit during the mid-December to judge children. She had 2 forms, which sounds familiar. The children that were good would see her as this beautiful snow goddess, like creature that would leave a silver coin in their shoe.
Like a tooth fairy.
Kind of, yeah, a shoe fairy. And the children that were bad, she would appear as a grotesque-looking old hag that would split open their stomachs, remove their organs, and fill it with rocks and straw.
I mean, would she put it back together again?
She might sew you up.
But I was like, is it assumed then that the kid was going to die? Or
then he's dead.
Okay, I was like, or did
she
he just have to deal with digesting rocks and stuff?
I think it's just
this is folklore, of course. Obviously, in real life, if you rip open a kid's stomach, especially like 1,000 years ago, they're gonna die.
It's not like, they're left hollow inside.
But
no. It's like literal, and now they're dead.
Okay, I was just asking, in the world of this folklore, are the kids put back together afterwards?
No, but this is what she does. So that's how you know your kid was bad, is that you come in there and it's all bloody and he's full of straw or pebbles or whatever. Yay. She was often accompanied by some spirits that would follow her, and they were called Perkten, which is plural for her name, which is Perkta. These creatures looked very similar to what we know today as Krampus. The Perkten's purpose was to enter your home and ward off any evil spirits, but they were also mischievous creatures.
So they're kind of like demon elves.
I think because then they're kind of like elves too. And I also am confused by this theory because, Perkta herself is evil, but they're like...
But she's good. But
she's okay.
She's like a judge.
We're talking about the other mean spirits.
This is not just the OG Krampus. This is the OG Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd, yeah. Basically, Punisher. Just whatever.
Yeah. Am I going to kill you or let you live and give you some coin?
Aw, maybe.
What a wonderful time it would have been to live back in those days. Like, don't be bad this year, or something's going to eat and rip open your stomach. But if you're good, we'll pay you.
We'll give you a coin.
Can I have a third option where I can be okay and nothing happens? Because that's the route I want to take.
Is there a way to opt out of this? So, there were also a lot of celebrations that was based off this creature, like Perkta and the Perktens. It was called Perktenlauf, where everyone would dress up like a Perkten and run around being devious, all the while drinking tons of alcohol. So it was kind of fun for all. For the adults especially, and then the kids were terrified.
Sweet.
Yay! Yeah, everyone wins.
If the parents are going to get drunk, it's really good to make sure your kids are in line because you're going to be completely out of sorts. So if your kids are scared shitless, then, Then
you can do whatever you want because they're going to be fine.
Makes sense. I have a feeling that this ritual started as a way to deal with kids while you're drunk.
Go to bed. Mommy's going to get crazy.
I have to celebrate to keep the demon away. And you better be good.
I have to do this. The demon's
going to eat your stomach out.
Mommy has no choice. Okay. Let's see. It should be noted that the Christian church was already absorbing some of these pagan traits, making them more appealing so people can convert more easily. And that's just one nice way of putting it. But then they were also demonizing Perchten and Perchtenlauf, the celebration, because they said it looked too much like the devil, that they took an inspiration from their own from the pagan celebration. So do you know what I'm saying? Like, they made the devil look like Perchten, and then now that it looks like Perchten, they're like, you can't do it because the devil looks like Perchten.
I guess I'm confused. Wait, so
essentially what the church ended up doing, because the Christian church obviously came much after the pagan religion, right?
Well, I don't know how long ago this was, but
so this would have been around the 12th century.
Oh, well, Christianity existed long before that.
No, I understand that, but these traditions had been around for centuries and centuries prior as well.
Okay.
So, but like
So you're saying when the Christian church came in, they were upset that Perchten looked a lot like their personification of the devil.
Yeah, which came from Perchten.
In that region, I would assume.
Right.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So they're just like, we took what you thought was fun, made it our devil, but now you can't use it because it's our devil. I feel like we're going in circles.
I guess it's one of those you had to be there kind of moments.
I guess so. It's just like, it's kind of like manipulation. It's like...
So how did this issue affect what was happening?
Well, what ended up happening is that this is how St. Nicholas was introduced to the celebration, as a compromise, almost. So, like, the people were not willing to not continue celebrating Perchtenlauf.
So they wanted to keep their demonic character, but they had to introduce a more saintly character to make it kind of balance out.
Exactly. So now St. Nicholas is part of the fun as well. So it was kind of to appease the church and to not demonize, or rather make him more like part of the church theme, like saying, oh, you got your Perchten here who's like kind of your devil figure, but we also have St. Nicholas. So they're just kind of, having fun with each other, good and bad, right? It's fine. So it was kind of like their way of appeasing the church.
Gotcha.
Is how I interpret it. So present day-ish, like coming back to a little more modern, I would say that around the 17th century, the church basically did a pretty good job of trying to abolish the entire Perchten mythology. And instead, so the people were kind of upset about this and wanted to still maintain some sort of tradition of celebration that they've done, even though, how like people nowadays celebrate Christmas and people are like, you have to have Jesus or something, and they're like, I just want to celebrate Christmas. And
Sure.
You got your different school of thoughts, right, about like how Christmas is
and you have a lot of
celebrated.
people of different religious backgrounds still celebrating at least a Western version of Christmas.
Exactly. So that's how it kind of felt. It felt like we can't take everything away. So they ended up kind of creating what we know now as Krampus. So it changed into this character. And that's one theory of where he came from.
Oh, so it's an idea.
Yeah. So, yeah. And because of this, originally, since St. Nicholas was originally celebrated on December 6th, then Krampus would come visit the children on December 5th. Yeah. But nowadays, depending on the regions, it's December 24th now.
So he's a Christmas Eve spirit.
So he's a Christmas Eve spirit now.
Oh,
Very
man,
specifically.
to all those people who celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve.
We're actually celebrating Krampus.
Krampus Day.
My family did then.
Totally.
Why not?
We have two Christmases because your family does it on Christmas Eve and my family does it on Christmas. Mm-hmm. So, but yours does it the evening of Christmas Eve. Mine does it the morning of Christmas. So it's still like a day. It's just got some sleeping.
Yeah, we always do it in the evening, and then unless you're making tamales, then that feels like all fucking day.
All day.
All day. Oh yeah, you helped that one year.
Oh yeah, and I'm really bad at it. And I was trying so hard.
Everyone's kind of bad at it, except my mom.
Not your mom. Your mom would always just keep grabbing them from us, and she was just like the one swipe of her hand. Well, it would be perfect.
Well, she was like filling them with the chili and the pork or whatever, and so like we would hand it to her, and she'd look at it, grab the other spoon, even it out, and then put in the pork. Because I think it was just like quality control.
I know. The thing is, she was filling with pork, which was probably the job we should have given to those of us that really were really bad at this.
So my mom would be the only one making them, and all like 5 of us would be filling them with
We'd make
pork.
like half full crappy things. Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, tamales. One of those few dishes that they taste great when you don't have to make them.
Yeah, you're like, was it worth it? I don't know. And then sometimes you think it is. It's once a year. Anyway, where were we? Where were we on this messed up tradition? So nowadays, speaking of celebration, Krampus is still celebrated, very much so, and very similar to how Perchtenlauf was celebrated. But this time, Santa Claus is certainly joining on the fun. And today is called Krampuslauf, which I guess the whole thing was meant Krampus Run, or Krampus. It's like a parade where people would dress up as Krampus, run around and play tricks on people. They would often drink and even go into other people's homes to bring little gifts and tell stories and to scare the children. In exchange, they received alcohol and treats as well. So it's almost like the parents were rewarding them for scaring their kids.
Oh, man. So you're saying nowadays we leave out cookies for Santa, but in these other areas they leave out like a shot for the Krampus?
That's awesome. Oh, my God. It's like trick-or-treating.
See, everyone always wants to dress up as Santa and have the kids sit on their knee and they ask them for gifts and the ho-ho. I want to dress up like Krampus and people just give me shots.
All this time we've been celebrating St. Patty's Day, paying for our own drinks. We need to dress up like Krampus and get drunk for free.
Santa's for the kids and Krampus is for the adults.
Definitely.
I like this.
I like it a lot. So, people today still use Krampus illustrations on their postcards very commonly. So, especially like in Germany and all that stuff. Sometimes it is seen torturing children, seducing women, or as a small cute creature.
Sweet.
Just whatever you like. And I had to look it up. I'm like, seducing women? Because, you know, I guess I can kind of see the deviousness because we're already getting drunk and, well. So I looked it up, and it looks like around the 1950s there was a resurgence of Krampus because it actually really, really died down after the war. I mean, obviously, a lot of things did. So it kind of came back around the 50s, and then in the 60s, they really tried to portray him as like this kind of sex fiend. And there was just a lot of rated R illustrations that people had a lot of fun with. I almost feel like they were really catering it to the adults now at this point, even though it still had this connotation of scaring children.
Well, but the kids didn't really need it at that point. They had a pretty definitive version of Santa at
already
that point, and they were
at this
happy
point.
with that.
So the resurgence,
and
if
Santa
anything,
didn't eat them or kill them. So,
no.
I think by the 50s, you know, the idea of those Grimm's fairy tales where the way to keep kids in lines with threats of death may not necessarily be the best way to go about it. And having a fun, playful Santa was nice in that it's better tell your kids to look both ways for crossing the street because they could get hit by a car, not because Krampus will jump out of a vehicle and eat you. Might have been kind of where we've gone
or
with
whip
that.
you. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, either way, he's still well and survived throughout history, throughout other religions and wars. Krampus is still well in our lives.
Well, and he's gotten quite a resurgence in things like movies and stuff.
Yes.
I'd say over the last decade, we've seen... So horror movies in general have had kind of a really good last 20 years. It used to go in cycles, but we're seeing them on the streaming services. They're being made a lot more readily. I mean, it's not like in the 90s where they did exist, but you had to go find the small section in the video rental store with the R movies, and it was stuff like Leprechaun. Now horror movies are just a lot more prevalent. And so we're also seeing a lot of Christmas-themed horror movies popping up in the last couple decades. I mean, there were some good classic ones, like the original Black Christmas from, I want to say it was like the late 70s with Margot Kidder.
I thought it was early 70s. I think you're probably right.
Sometime in the 70s, yeah. It had like Margot Kidder and, and a couple other important actors. But recently we've had some really good ones. Our favorite recent one is called A Christmas Horror Story.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we thought it was going to be terrible. We saw the box art and we're just like, come on, this is going to be B-movie schlock. And we were expecting it. We were just expecting a terrible movie.
We were kind of desperate. We were like, I think we had gone through all of our Christmas movies, and I was looking for something horror. You were still wanting something Christmassy, and that was our compromise.
And we were both dreading it a little bit, and we were shocked at how good it was. Not only does it have high production values and good acting, but
it's like decent acting. Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
not
don't
great
know.
acting. I don't know
any of the
film. I'd consider it good for a horror film. I mean, it opens with William Shatner, which is already kind of a red flag. But I'm like, well, they have money.
Well, he was so funny
when he actually sells his role in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's like it's
an anthology.
It's an anthology film with 4 stories? Well,
so there's an overarching
story.
And then there's
the school story, there's the visiting grandma story.
And there's a little kid one.
There's a little kid story, and then there's Santa story. So there's 5.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So there's 5 total stories and one overarching. They're all connected. Although, unlike movies like VHS, which are also anthology movies, these are connected in a much looser way, but they are still connected.
Well, they're all in the same town. Kind of like a little bit like Trick or Treat.
But they all do relate, and sometimes you won't see how they relate until like a second viewing. And you'll be like, oh, I totally get it. But, and all the stories are very different from each other, which was kind of cool.
And they're all something that I think, if this helps anyone, just kind of like Trick or Treat, they're all from something that we already know existed. Absolutely. So they're not like made up creatures. They're not anything like that. It's like something that's already been in some sort of folklore or like storytelling.
Exactly. And you'll be able to tell just from the box art that one of the stories involves Krampus.
Oh, that's not a secret. Yeah.
And it's totally worth watching. And I think that was my first real exposure to Krampus. And then we saw some YouTube videos of the Krampus walk where everyone's all dressed up as Krampus walking in. I don't remember if it was Germany. It might have been Norway. I can't remember what city it was. But that was pretty amazing too. Yeah,
I think it sounds super fun. I definitely want to go celebrate Krampus Lauf one day. I'm saying it terribly. Every time I kept hearing it pronounced correctly, I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So, but anyway, I had a lot of fun telling the story. I try to bring you an entertaining enough reduced version.
Well, I mean, any story that has children being dipped in ink with a pitchfork only to assumingly be eaten later, I mean, that's just top quality storytelling. That is right there.
Creepy.
I need to see this picture, by the way. Is it like an old picture or is it like a recent picture?
No, it looks kind of like old style illustration. Yeah, I'll show it to you.
At least 100 years old?
I would think so, yeah.
Cool, because then we might be able to post it on our Instagram. Because if it doesn't belong to anyone, if it's in the public domain.
Oh, I think it's like from the 1800s.
Sweet. Well, if it's in the public domain, then we can totally post it online for people, which I think would be great.
Yeah.
We want to share more pictures with you guys. We just have to be careful. We got to respect copyrights and all that stuff, so we can't put other people's pictures on there.
And that's kind of what I try to do myself, where I'm telling stories. They're just like more general knowledge. I don't want to take anything from anyone's mouths or anything like that. And if there's credit due, like quotes or whatnot, but all of this is super old information.
Well, and a lot of it's interpretive too, because like you said, this is one version of it.
This is just one version. Another one was that he was like the son of, in Norse mythology, he was the son of Hel, Hel. Mm-hmm. And so that's where he came from. I mean, there's just like a tons different
Well, it's just like even the story of Robin Hood. There's like a million different renditions. Some have magic, some don't. Some try to make him realistic. Some say he's royalty. Some say he doesn't. There's so you went with one and you went with it. You went with Lily's Krampus version.
This is Lily's Krampus version.
Lily's Krampus. So this is the Krampus we're going to have to celebrate here because what Lily says goes.
Yeah, he started as a demon, ended up as a sex fiend. What better Krampus would I?
Why am I not surprised? It was like sex fiend, kids leave out alcohol for him.
This is the path I chose, so and I took you guys with me. Yeah, the ink thing was a little weird, but I had to throw it in there.
Well, all right. So this makes me just want to read more about other versions of Krampus to find out how they relate to each other and what things people agree on and what they don't.
Yeah, it is. And then that's what I was talking about. Like, I really did have to read through a lot, kind of comb it through. And instead of jumping back and forth, I just went with one that I liked. So
perfect.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going to take a sip.
Well, I need a refresh on my drink. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go get a fresh round of drinks. You should do the same. And we'll be back in just a minute to continue because I have a story to tell you.
Yes, I can't wait.
Hey, everybody. We're back. And now it's time for an end of episode encounter.
Yay, we're back.
Yeah, I know. We didn't have one last week. We had a fun little detour, and we're going to go back to tropical terrors in a future episode. But right now, we're back to the aliens. So this one isn't quite on Christmas, but it's close. It's in November.
Okay. Closer to Thanksgiving?
It was before Thanksgiving, early November. It works for this.
It's all related.
So this story is called When Aliens Attack.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so this is a particularly unique one. And I ran into this one on accident. I ran into this when I was trying to find Christmas-related stuff. And this popped up because of like a random side search. And I was like, I've never heard of this. But if any of you out there are really big into UFO sightings and everything, there's no way you haven't heard of this. It's apparently a big, high-profile one. But, you know, for me, it was new. It was pretty exciting. So this incident has many different names. Sometimes it's called the Robert Taylor incident. Sometimes it's called the Livingston incident. Sometimes it's called the Dagmont Woods encounter. So there's a lot of different names for it.
Wow, like Krampus.
Yeah, but I think it's because a lot of different newspapers of the time kind of just gave it its
Their own headlines, yeah.
Yeah. So this one takes place in Scotland. Ooh. We're going back to Scotland, but all the dogs, it does have dogs. But they're not jumping off bridges in this one, so this is good.
Awesome.
All right, so this takes place, and this one was before we were born.
Yay.
Yeah, this takes place on November 9th, 1979.
Okay.
So my brother would have been like about half a year old at this point. So, I mean, it's still recent, but, you know, it's still a ways ago. I mean, color TV existed. Let's go there. This is the color TV era.
That's all that matters.
All that matters. And this also takes place, so, you know, as I said, November 9th, 1979, but this takes place at 10:30-ish a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
So a guy named Robert Taylor, who was a forestry worker, and he was employed by the Livingston Development Corporation, he was working for them, and he was with his dog walking in a wooded area of Dagmont Law. Okay. So I had to look it up. In Scotland, when they say law, it means hill, like big hill.
Oh, okay.
Dagmont Law is in Livingston, Scotland, which is around 15 miles west of Edinburgh.
Okay.
And that's about 24 kilometers for you metric friends out there. And so what makes this such an interesting encounter is he was actually attacked.
Cool.
As opposed to just saw something. And I know we have UFO abductions.
Which I find that as a personal attack.
No, I get that. But I mean, as far as we can tell, there was no abduction being reported. He was attacked.
He was just...
Which makes it a little bit weird.
So was it... I mean, you're probably going to say this, but did he, like, stumble on them? Or was this alien like, hey, there's a guy over there?
We're going to get to it.
Okay.
We're going to get to it. There's a lot of different things about this story. The reason I got really excited is the two things I like when I'm looking for UFO stories is I like ones that have a lot of evidence involved instead of just someone says they saw something.
Right.
But I also like the ones that are different than the others because then it doesn't feel like someone just regurgitating or taking something from their unconscious memory or something like that. Like it seems like something unique happened, and I really like that.
Sure.
And this is one such story. So anyway, so he's walking through a wooded area on this hill with his dog with him, and he came to a small clearing, and that's when he saw what he described as a, quote, flying dome, end quote.
Ooh.
It was roughly 6.5 meters wide. He further described it as, quote, a dark metallic material with a rough texture like sandpaper, end quote. And he also said that around the edge of it, on the rim of it, were small propeller-like objects.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to explain. He described it to a sketch artist later who drew it. I'll show you that picture in a minute. And I think we can absolutely put that online.
Yes, definitely.
And then, but that's not just it. So he comes upon this dome-like structure. And then he says that two smaller balls, about 3 feet in diameter, a little less than a meter in diameter, came out of the dome. Mm. And he said they looked like sea mines, meaning they have all these spikes coming off of them. Yeah. And that they rolled on those spikes. They were on the ground rolling on the spikes towards him. And then when they got to him, they attempted to drag him towards the large sphere.
So how do they grab him? Like poke him?
Yeah, it would appear because... So we'll actually get to that. So It seems like they were kind of trying to drag him with their, like, spikes, right? Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say... So I actually watched, because you can see the video of this guy telling the story. I mean, it's that recent.
Cool. Okay.
I wouldn't say he's the most detailed. He tries to be, but he's not telling the story as thoroughly as maybe someone like you or me would have wanted.
Sure.
So anyway, he says, quote, I remember feeling a tug at that time, because they were trying to drag him towards it. And he continued to say, a very powerful smell, a choking sort of smell, end quote. He later described the smell as being like burning brakes.
Oh, like tires or something.
Like if you slam on the brakes, I would assume. That kind of smell.
I guess so.
Kind of metallic for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this, and we're going to get back to this later, I think this is the most interesting part of the story because there's a lot to talk about here when it comes to a smell.
Okay.
Anyway, it was at this point that he lost consciousness. He estimates that he was unconscious for around 20 minutes. They do not say how he made this estimate. I don't know if he had a watch on him or if it had to do with when he knew when he was out there and afterwards, but he thinks he was out for about 20 minutes. When he came to, the objects were all gone. He also noticed that he had rips all up his pants and grazes on his thighs and chin.
Oh.
He had a headache, a dry throat, his legs felt paralyzed, and he was in a confused state.
So he wasn't just hungover? Because that's...
Right.
Just kidding.
I'm also going to point out, and this is the part that makes me sad, he went out there with his dog. The dog is never mentioned again. And I would assume that's because he wasn't relevant to the story. Because most of the accounts I was saying didn't even mention the dog until I watched the interview and he mentioned he had his dog with him. So I assume the dog is fine.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like the dog was taken or...
No, I think that would have been
brought
pretty
up.
explicitly said.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And there was also one particular version of the story that said when he got up, he tried to start his car, but he couldn't, and he ended up walking back to town. But only one of like the 4 stories I read said that part. Yeah. So I don't know how true that is. He never said it in his interview that that's what happened.
Okay.
But he was definitely confused. When he got home, he told his wife that he'd been attacked. He told her it was a spaceship, and she said, quote, "Oh, goodness me. There's no such thing as a spaceship. I'm going to call the doctor. You must have fell and hurt your head." End quote. She actually said it, and she had the most delightful Scottish accent.
It sounds like what a mom would say.
Right? So she called the police and medical professionals, who all came. After his, abrasions were treated, the police went with Taylor to the site. First thing they noticed, there was no smell. They also found what was described as both, quote, ladder-shaped marks and 2 track marks, end quote. So there were actual indentions in the ground.
On the ground.
As well as 40 holes in the ground in the area. The holes are about 3.5 inches in diameter, which would suggest that, if you have these balls rolling around with all these spikes, they might cause all those little holes. A BBC News article by Stephen Brocklehurst noted that the tracks were caused by something quite heavy, such as types of, quote, caterpillar tracks often fitted to bulldozers, end quote. However, there were no signs of tracks outside of this very small area, this clearing where he saw the UFO.
So it would have had to, land there.
Yeah, how would it have gotten there? Because it would have had to have been transported there if it was so heavy.
Yeah.
So they didn't see anything like that. And if it were a man-made object, it should show some evidence of how it got there. They also investigated whether any of the machinery in the vicinity or from the Livingston Development Corporation, the company that he worked for, if they had any machinery that would match those marks. Nothing came up similar to it.
Ooh.
So nothing they could find in the area, nothing for the company. So they're like, we don't know. It's similar to those things that we know about, but none of them are in the area.
Yeah.
The tears in Robert's pants were also investigated. They appear to have been caused by something that they said was hooking onto them and moving upwards on his leg, tearing downward.
Almost like it was moving backwards then.
Yeah, so it's not like he could have clawed him up himself because it was going the opposite way. It was crawling up his legs while he was either standing or on the ground. It was tearing down.
Wait, so the claw marks, let's say I have a hook. Was the hook going top, bottom, hooking?
I would say imagine you're standing and a cat is climbing up your leg.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But
okay.
It tore holes in his pants.
Okay, yeah,
so the tears would be kind of going downwards, but they show symptoms of a claw going in and pulling down. Yeah.
Okay.
And that these tears were not consistent with what you would see if they were being snagged on things on the ground, like if you were crawling on the ground, or if he was clawing them upwards himself.
Okay.
So it wasn't consistent with those.
Sure.
It should also be noted that Robert Taylor is a respected man. He was liked in the community, and he was never known for telling stories, tall tales, or falsehoods. So he's a good witness, as most people, skeptics or believers, they like him as a witness because it's pretty apparent he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants to tell a tall tale.
Sure.
And after this incident, there was no evidence that he was trying to gain publicity, fame, give excess interviews or anything like this. He wasn't like trying to make money off of this, so it wasn't like a story that he might have just created in that sense.
He wasn't trying to make a book or like.
It seems as though that he was not that kind of person. Important other things to mention: he was a war hero, he was a churchgoer, and he was a teetotaler. And for those of you out there who don't know what that means he didn't drink alcohol. He did not like drinking alcohol. So we couldn't say that he was drunk or anything like this. And he's
a more reliable witness than either you and I. And he's a
God-fearing man, so believing in UFOs falls into a much more specific and strict point of view with people who are particularly church-going than people who are like, just like, no, I don't believe in God, but aliens come take me away or something.
Sure.
So those are just important character traits about him so that we know. The police officially reported this as a criminal assault. Now, the sad part of the story is this guy, Robert Taylor, he passed away in 2007.
Okay.
So he lived many years after this, but at the same time, he is no longer with us. But he maintained throughout his whole life that this is what he saw and this is what happened. We have no more evidence as to what happened. We couldn't test DNA. We weren't doing that at the time or anything like this. So this is what we have. This is the story we have to go on.
Okay.
So now, first thing I want to talk about is some questions that we might have about this.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, but I want to hear yours too.
Okay.
So one question is, let's say they are aliens.
Sure.
And he passed out. They didn't specifically say that he was sure he woke up where he fell down. That was never talked about. Those aren't questions that seem to be asked in an interview.
Okay.
So we have no idea that maybe he was taken into this thing. If we assume this was there and was he taken sight? So we have no idea because he has no recollection of anything while he was passed out. And he hasn't talked about anything that's really badly happened to him since. Right. So he's not like noticing weird flashbacks or memories or crazy stuff like that. Yeah. Other question is, what happened to the dog during this? When he woke up, was the dog just sitting right next to him? Dog wasn't mentioned. That bothers me because I want to know. That bothers me too. Because, so he also, another question is, so he said he had a dry mouth, having trouble talking. He was disoriented. So something happened to him. I want to know a little bit more about what's going on. I want more of a medical professional, like, who knows a little bit more about things that could have happened to him.
Yeah, like, what are these symptoms associated with? I mean, like, I can tell you that sounds like a hangover, but at the same time, like you said, he was paralyzed in the legs.
Exactly.
But he must have gotten up, so how paralyzed was he or how long?
Exactly. And then furthermore, he has all these tears on his pants and abrasions on his thighs and chin. How bad are these abrasions? I mean, obviously, if the pants were torn up, that's a significant amount of force, but how bad were his legs? We're talking just like light bruising, little scratches. I mean, do we see a difference in force between what's happening to the pants and to his legs? I mean, there's so many questions to ask. So before I go into what believers, ufologists think, what skeptics think, how about you ask me some questions just in case it's something I forgot to mention that I did research?
Well, I guess I don't know if there were more questions. I just have, so with the tire marks, maybe that's where I'll start.
The track marks.
The track marks, yeah. You said that they were kind of similar to like bulldozers and
they said that some things could be similar to. When I was reading more about it, especially we're thinking some of these holes because some bulldozers will have these like spikes, little things on them. I'm assuming it's kind of like those devices we bring around parks when we're like taking out the plugs.
But I guess what I mean is you mentioned that, but there weren't anything like that around the area. Okay, that's fine.
Only in the clearing. Only in that small area of the clearing.
That clearing. But have they ever been able to identify it as something anywhere? Like saying, there weren't any machinery in this area, but we've tested it, and then there's like this rare machine that's used in China
that matches it.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, did they ever end up matching it?
I'm assuming because he was fine and they were already dealing with him saying he saw some sort of alien device. I don't think the investigation went that deep.
That's the issue.
Well, now with the internet, that's something that some guy on Reddit would have figured out in about 8
Are
seconds.
these tracks?
He's like, oh, I've dealt with all those things all the time when I was
wanna
living
know
in Serbia.
if these tracks are available online, because there's like people who are investigators who are professional.
The police have diagrams, and you can see a fuzzy version of the diagram in the video.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure you could request it. I don't know what the what information gets released to the public from like Scotland Yard or whatever, but maybe it's publicly available. I don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
All right. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the believers ufologists. Why? Because they're the easiest ones to talk about, because they believe everything.
Yeah.
If the light flickers, it's aliens.
It's fun.
Yeah, so we're just going to deal with them. So, obviously, ufologists love this story. It is apparently a very popular one and a liked one. It's widely discussed because of how different it is than other encounters, namely because there was an attack involved, that there's actual physical injuries that can be documented. A lot of people who say they get like abducted, they can't prove any sort of injury when they
have no physical
they'll claim that there's like some microchip, but x-rays won't show it, and they're like, oh, they obviously have to say it's some sort of alien tech you can't detect or something like that, but they know it's there. This guy actually had real physical injuries. And there was physical evidence in the area of disruption to nature. You know, all the holes, the 40 holes.
Like,
and these
I
track
think
marks.
it's safe to say that something was there.
So something happened.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the interesting part.
But what happened, we don't know. But so ufologists are all over this. Like, it's different. It's exciting. We have evidence. They love it. So obviously, most of them are just like, totally, I believe this.
Right.
And even the more skeptical ufologists that I was reading, I don't know a lot of these people's reputations, so I'm not going to drop names. I've read a few names, but it's really hard to find out how important they are. But apparently this one is considered, even by the more skeptical people who believe in UFOs, as one of the more credible accounts that has been recorded because of these other pieces of evidence. Things that they think are super key is the damage to his clothes and his injuries, because they did not seem consistent with something he could have done to himself.
Right.
The tearing and everything. He could have obviously abrased his chin and legs himself, but the damage to the clothing. His unique interpretation of the UFO, they really like, because it wasn't just a generic, there was a sphere in the sky. He had these little weird propeller objects.
Yeah. Let me see.
Okay. Don't read anything at the top, but you can see. So there's the drawing that's his interpretation of the UFO.
Oh,
that's
weird.
That's the guy himself to the right.
Okay.
Bottom left is one of the holes that there were 40 of.
Bottom left, you mean?
Bottom left is the hole, and the bottom right shows the area where he saw it.
Oh, okay.
And his finger's in the way. Sorry, he's like pointing to something.
So the holes aren't as deep as I thought they would be.
I agree, but they are definitely obviously there.
Like, they're not like
oh, that could just be natural. That some creature did that, either a human or an animal. That was done by a creature. That just doesn't occur.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can see what I mean by propellers on the UFO.
So he did describe then that like the sphere itself had some sort of ladder-like landing.
Like it was
like feet.
Yeah, it was like it had landing gear, like when it was just standing.
Yeah, but they're okay. That's cool. Okay, I got it.
And they really do look like those underwater mines, like you've seen in Finding
little
Nemo
bit with a lot less sticks, and they're more pogo stick.
Yeah, I'll try to put pictures on the on like our Twitter or something like that, so you can see them, or the Instagram.
Yeah.
So people love his abnormal interpretation of the UFO. When things start getting more unique like that, it sounds, like I said earlier, it sounds less like someone's just regurgitating something they've heard before. His was unique, and no other UFO has really been described this way. Like rolling mines and weird, and they're not propellers. Like if you can't see the picture right now because you're listening to us, don't imagine like it has a plane with propellers. I'm talking like tiny little weird moving objects that propellers the best description.
Kind of like a little bit like a helicopter, because that's the plane it's on.
Yeah, but
so
they're tiny, like compared to the whole thing, and there's like 50 of them going around a ring. Imagine they had a lot of those little kids' hats with a little propeller on top.
Yeah, so
like 30 of those going around the rim of a kind of a saucer-like thing. It's very weird. It's hard to describe. Maybe if
there's going to be a picture.
If we pretended that this was real, maybe they had some sort of scientific instrument going on. Now let's go to the skeptics. And what I like about this is that this is one of the first times where I actually have some disagreements with the skeptics. Skeptics, one of the first things they'll mention is that nobody else who came by afterwards noticed a weird smell.
Okay.
And things that are important to also notice is, if we're talking about important facts that the skeptics can talk about, is that he smelled something weird that no one else could get, that he was disoriented afterwards, having trouble moving, the weird dryness in his throat. But it's also important to note that he did have 14 years before meningitis.
Oh.
Which can have profound long-term effects on the body. His treatment was successful, but he did have it. It's something to mention. And another thing that's really important to notice, if you'll see from the picture I'm going to show the area, the clearing does have posts in it, like man-made objects. They were either cut down trees that look like posts, or there's something there. So this area has been manipulated by humans.
Yeah.
To what degree, it's unknown, but this is not like an untouched wilderness area. This area has been modified. People were there at this time doing stuff. So the idea that some sort of equipment had previously been there is still very possible. And so that's something that's very important to think about. All right. A woman named Patricia Hannaford, a qualified physician, suggested that Taylor had an epileptic attack. Essentially, he had a seizure. And this would explain the weird things he saw and smelled, and that would explain by hallucination. So a very common thing when people are having strokes and seizures is they do smell weird stuff. Sometimes they taste weird stuff too.
I have heard that,
and they see weird stuff. And I think that's one of the most interesting things. The smell alone, I think, is one of the most intriguing things. The smell, I think, is the most damning thing to his story.
Yeah.
Because it's such a common symptom of people who are having either seizures or strokes and other things happening with their brain. And so let's talk about him having a seizure. If he was having a seizure and he smelled all that stuff, what are the chances that his dog freaked out and started clawing at his leg?
Oh.
None of the experts said that. That's a chase theory.
I honestly didn't even go there in my head.
You know how animals can react. So certain animals, service animals, they're trained to help out people in these situations. But a dog who's not trained to handle this, and he's never seen it because this guy doesn't have a history of these things. Because, see, you can't say he was scratching him up himself, because they said that the signs of the tears in his genes were going the wrong direction, that he could have done it himself. But what if the dog was clawing at his legs because he was freaking out?
Man, I wish, like, I don't know what kind of, like you said, since it's like a UFO situation, what kind of research or investigation there was to figure it out.
Exactly.
Dang it.
So that's a little chase theory. But don't know. Maybe the dog wouldn't react that way, because it's not necessarily the normal reaction for a dog. We don't know how this dog would react. And that would be one of the things.
Typically, I guess you're right.
If you were back then investigating with the knowledge we have now, one of the first things we would do is we'd try to see how this dog reacts in different situations.
Well, not just that. I think you would just literally go into their claws and see if there's any like skin cells.
That too. Well, that's if we had the technology of today. I meant like if we were
at the
back
time.
Then. Maybe make Robert try to do a fake seizure and see how the dog reacted, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So then we have a UFO skeptic, Stuart Campbell, who came along with the police to the site at the time. He revisited the area later on and looked around to the areas surrounding it. And he found plenty of PVC pipe and pipe sections in nearby fields. Furthermore, he found that the local water company had laid cabling nearby about 100 meters away from where this UFO was witnessed. And he concluded that this might have explained the weird markings on the ground. Not quite sure why. Maybe he thought some people were maybe digging little bits of hole with pipes. But his suggestion was the PVC pipes are pretty similar in shape to these holes. Doesn't explain the track. Okay.
Right.
Because even if you needed a vehicle like that to lay the track, why wouldn't you have signs of it coming and going from this small area?
Exactly.
And it was 100 meters away. 100 meters is not a small amount of space.
Yeah.
It's pretty far distance. So this was his idea. I don't necessarily agree with him. I think it's something that has plausibility. But if he really wanted to pursue this, he could go to that company and talk to the people who were supposed to lay the cabling. And
instead of just saying, oh, it probably was.
And ask him about the area. But I did not get any information that suggested he did do that. Maybe he did, and I didn't get to read about it. But what I read did not suggest he went that far with it. Now, Steve Donnelly, an editor of The Skeptic, which is a UK magazine about skepticism, particularly talking about paranormal stuff, said he thinks it was also an epileptic attack, and that Taylor witnessed a mirage of Venus, or that the mirage of Venus triggered his epilepsy. I think this is dumb.
What?
And I want to jump right in here and say that as a skeptic myself, I get pretty upset when a lot of skeptics can't wait to say things like, oh, you saw this reflecting off of this, or like they'll say you saw Venus.
It's almost
or
like
Mercury.
their explanation is so much more elaborate.
Well, I think the explanation is dumb. Well,
Yeah.
so if you were talking about you see like a light in the sky and it's moving a little weird or it's flickering a little weird and you don't understand it, and you want to say, oh, you might just be seeing Venus because it's such a bright star and it's not a star, but it's such a bright point.
Yeah.
And it looks a little abnormal some of the time, I'm okay with that. But he says it either triggered his epilepsy or while he was having an epileptic attack, he saw it and it caused his hallucination. I mean, he saw something that he described as 6 meters wide on the ground. And there's no way it could have created a mirage. Like when you see a mirage of the sun went on like a very humid day in an area and the sun looks like it's impossibly big in the sky, that's the sun. That's like the biggest thing in our solar system, not a tiny little planet. And so, you know, if he was talking about seeing a distant light that he thought was a UFO, sure, I could believe Venus. But this just seems like he's just like, he just saw a planet, it's nothing. This seems like dismissing it rudely.
Right.
And also, I think it's insulting to Robert's intelligence. Yeah. So, I mean, other optical effects that are things like he said are, you know, seeing the green flash when the sun is setting. Sometimes you see the green flash. These are all optical effects. Right. We know these exist. We're in a modern society that understands optics and things like this. So we get them, and we can tell what people maybe 1,000 years ago might have thought was a godlike or supernatural event. We now know is, oh, this is an optical illusion, like a rainbow. We understand that now. But this is like a 6 meter wide object.
It's like in
right
his
next
face.
to him, and balls with spikes crawled up and clawed up his legs. Saying he saw Venus and he woke up with legs caught.
It's something super tangible. Like it's right fucking. It's like if you're telling me this building that's in front of me isn't there, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you because I can actually touch it too.
Absolutely.
You know.
So I mean, at this point, this is what we have. The only skeptic argument that has merit is that maybe he had some sort of episode, like an epileptic attack or a seizure.
I agree.
Which would suggest that which would explain why he hallucinated and saw something. And we could try to say it would explain the claws in his legs by it being a dog, or maybe the people who investigated his pants did it badly and it was himself.
Yeah.
So if we buy all that, we still have to explain all these holes and the tracks.
Right.
Which by themselves aren't super crazy, but except that we don't know how they got there. There's no tracks going to the area, but when you tie it all together, it becomes a bunch of things that make the whole thing sound a little fishy.
Yeah, like you can't. One explanation didn't explain the other thing. You know what I mean? Like there's not a whole. There's not like one story that says, oh, this all puts it all together. That's what happened.
And so normally this is where Chase jumps in with his theory that mostly just says it's nothing happened here that was totally supernatural or anything. But this is honestly going to be one of the first times where I do buy that maybe he had an epileptic seizure. But there's just enough weird things going on here that I'm just going to actually say it. I think there's a chance something weird happened here.
Nice.
I don't know what it is, but I think something weird might have happened here.
I agree.
Just going to say. Maybe not. Maybe everything could be covered. Maybe it was just a perfect combination, a perfect storm of there was equipment there at some point in the past. It hadn't been rainy enough, and so the land hadn't kind of recovered from everything yet, so the track weren't so visible. And then he happened to have an epileptic seizure, and his dog reacted atypically, clawed up his legs.
There's got to be a lot of things going on. And,
so
yeah.
If I was able to witness the event from the distance, go back in time and see it, and it looked like a perfect storm, I'd be like, absolutely, total perfect storm. Crazy, huh? And these stories usually are just crazy things. But there's just enough here that I would put this, if I was filing things away, I'd put this into the needs further investigation file.
Haven't quite figured it out.
This would be an X file.
A total X file.
That I'd let my little Fox Moldy. That's my pet name for him, by the way. I know it's Mulder. I'd let Fox Moldy and Scoliosis figure it out.
First of all, I've never heard you use those names. But
so anyway,
okay.
Anyway,
that
so
was great.
That's what I got. So that's my scary story. Tell me your thoughts about the scary story.
I thought it was really good. It was very interesting. I mean, like you said, it was one of very few where there's physical evidence, and that's just kind of
and an attack. Come
the
on.
best thing ever. I mean, that's kind of what you want well, not that you want, but like if there was a crime scene, you want evidence. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like if there was something going on, you want something that you can like study, and there was, instead of someone just having a story.
And having the cops there, I like. Because people can just tell stories, and cops might like write down the report, but cops went there, and as I saw in this video, and I'll post a link to the YouTube video, of course, as the cops showed, they actually took evidence and drew diagrams and looked at his pants and everything.
Yeah, that's cool.
His pants, by the way, now are in the possession of a ufologist who's all crazy, tinfoil hat about this.
Oh, Lord.
But, and I'd like to see him myself, because I just kind of like to see, but at this point, that was like, what, 41 years ago?
Something like that.
The pants are going to deteriorate to the point where you can't actually fully tell what happened to him. But
so, yeah, I mean... But I think, actually, if anything, I wonder if there's anyone that can, like, look at it. But then again, it could have been manipulated already because transport, when they first analyzed it, you don't know if what they did to it. So, I guess.
Yeah, and I just wish we could go back there and we could ask the questions like the dog. What happened to the dog? Was the dog there?
Yeah, I would really like to know.
There's just some other questions there that I have. I find the whole thing pretty interesting. I think it's a pretty good story. But
yay! Okay.
That's not the only UFO encounter we're going to talk about today.
Ooh.
I got a short one for you. That last one was not Christmassy, but this one is Christmassy.
Yes.
So this is called UFO in Space.
Okay.
Because if we were to see UFOs, where's the most logical place? I would say space.
Yes.
Because they had to come from somewhere. So why have we not seen UFOs in space? Well, turns out we might have. So anyway, this one goes a little bit further back. December 16th, 1965.
Okay.
Walter Schirra and Thomas Stafford, astronauts, were both aboard the Gemini 6 spacecraft, about to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. They contacted Mission Control to report that they spotted a UFO.
They straight up said UFO. I mean, like, I know it's unidentified flying object,
I will give you the full quote.
Okay.
This is a quote from Schirra's memoir, which is called Schirra's Space. Quote, "We have an object. Looks like a satellite going from the north to the south, probably a polar orbit. Looks like it might be going to re-enter soon. You might let me pick up that thing. I see a command module and 8 smaller modules in front. The pilot of the command module is wearing a red suit." End quote. Mission Control was gobsmacked. Immediately following the report, Mission Control began to hear the most unexpected of sounds. The tune of Jingle Bells played on a harmonica, accompanied by sleigh bells. I'm not making this up.
You're so full of it.
I'm not making this up.
Okay.
It was Walter Schirra's idea, and the two astronauts practiced several times before the mission. They brought these up with them into space, the harmonica and the sleigh bells.
That's awesome.
Both the harmonica and sleigh bells are on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. This is historic. You
had me for a second. I was like,
right?
Wait, what?
This is historic because it was the first time music was ever performed in space.
Oh, okay.
Music had been played in space for
Sure.
astronauts, but this is the first time music had ever been knowingly performed in space. It is also probably the first prank ever done in space.
Yes. That's awesome.
So, it wasn't a UFO, but I thought it was a good Christmas UFO story for you guys.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure that we here at Hair of the Werewolf wished you guys an awesome holiday in whatever way or method you guys like to celebrate it.
Yes, I agree.
And most importantly, let's hope it's got plenty of drinking.
I agree. I mean, I'm already ahead of the game here, but I do want to say happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, Merry Krampus. Just happy holidays.
Yeah, happy Hanukkah if that's your thing, and all the...
Did Hanukkah already end?
Hanukkah started a while ago. I can't remember. I'm fuzzy on those dates,
I
apologize. I should know. I feel like I should know. I think we'll have one more episode this year. I think there's one more Saturday before. There has to be one more Saturday.
There is definitely one more.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have one more episode this year before the New Year's. So this isn't the end of the year, but it's the last episode before Christmas.
Definitely. And of course, there are, our announcements. Visit us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, so we're going to be able to post photographs or pictures to our Instagram account, but links to things like videos and whatnot, those will be...
Yeah, you're a lot better at it. I mean,
those are going to be restricted to Twitter and Facebook.
Right, you're the one who posts on those, and then Sadly, for anyone who's following us on Instagram, that's me. So I try my best to
but
post pictures.
Instagram doesn't let you put links. You can only
Not
put links in the profile.
but I try to do pictures. I'm gonna try more. I promise.
But some of the things, like, we'll send you, I'll put up the YouTube link to the interview with this guy and, like, the police report. It was a whole news report of the Scotland UFO incident, and maybe if we can find some cool Krampus pictures that we're allowed to use.
There's plenty, trust me.
Sweet. So, and if this is your first time listening to us, we are making ourselves available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and our direct Captivate RSS feed. If you can think of any other feed that you want us to be on to make your life easier, just let us know, and we'll try to make it easier on you guys for listening to us.
And if you have any stories you want to share, ideas that you want to listen to, like anything you got out there that you want us to tell, our email address is hotwpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, I think that about does it.
So from us to you guys, happy end of the year, happy holiday festivities, and cheers.
And cheers.
Because remember, the best cure for a hangover
is fear. See ya.
Peace.